Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels gameplay. Today we're taking a look at a mono-white enchantments or auras deck, which is an aggro deck, so we have lots of 1 and 2 drops, and then we have a selection of aura enchantments and ways to search them up with cards like Heliod's Pilgrim. So let's dive right into it, starting with our 1 drops. We have Kytheon, Hero of Akros, a 2-1 for 1 mana, which is already decent, and then he gets a whole bunch of added abilities, can become indestructible. If you attack with enough creatures, he transforms into Gideon Battleforged, which also has a set of nice abilities that fit well into an aggressive deck. Then we have the simpler version, which is just Elite Vanguard, 2-1 for 1 mana. Then we get to our 2 drops, where we have a Knight of the White Orchid, 2-2 First Striker for 2 mana. And when he enters the battlefield, if the opponent controls more lands than you do, you get to search up planes and put it on the battlefield untapped. So sometimes it might be correct to not play the Knight of the White Orchid and just wait for the opponent to have more lands, so you get that added bonus. But sometimes you just run out a Knight on turn 2 anyways. We also have Consul's Lieutenant, one of the Renown cards. 2-1 First Striker, when he connects with the opponent, he gets a +1/+1 counter and becomes Renowned. And if he is Renowned, if he attacks, all other attacking creatures get +1/+1. So fits nicely if we have multiple creatures on the board. And a 2-1 First Striker for 2 mana is still quite decent. Then we have another Renown creature in Topan Freeblade, 2-2 Vigilant Renown 1. So wears the enchantments nicely, since she can be on offense and defense. Then we get to some of our enchantments. We have Grasp of the Hieromancer, and the enchanted creature will get +1/+1, and when he attacks, we can tap a creature the defending player controls, so gives the creature some sort of evasion if the opponent only has one big blocker. And we also have a copy of Divine Favor, in case we need some life gain or we need the added toughness. But the most important enchantment, I think, is Nimbus Wings, gives a creature +1/+2 and flying, so combines very nicely with our early creatures here, giving them flying and makes them unblockable most of the time. And the 2 toughness makes it a little bit better than the Grasp, I think. So that's why we have 4 copies of Nimbus Wings. Then I'm also trying out 1 copy of Celestial Flare, just to try and get people, is one of the few answers to a Gaia's Revenge, for example. And with First Strike we should be able to pull off some nice Celestial Flares in the middle of combat. And then we get to our 3 drops, where we have a Blessed Spirits, 2-2 Flyer for 3 mana. And whenever you cast an enchantment, you can put a +1/+1 counter on Blessed Spirits. So you don't have to actually enchant the Blessed Spirits itself, you can also enchant another creature, they still get the counter. So with all our aura spells, they can grow quite large, which is a fine deal for just 3 mana. Our next creature is Skyhunter Skirmisher, a 1-1 double striker with flying. So also a nice target for all our enchantments, as the double strike will double the damage output. Then we get to one of the more important cards in the deck, which is Heliod's Pilgrim, 2 and a white for a 1-2, but when she enters the battlefield we can search up our library for an aura card, reveal it and put it into our hand. So we can pretty much search up whatever enchantment we need in the specific situation we're in. If we have lots of mana, we can search up an expensive enchantment. If we need to get rid of a creature, we can search up one of our removal type enchantments, so lots of options there. And of course having a 1-2 in play is also nice, since now we have a target for all those enchantments. So a very important creature that is very versatile in this deck. Then we get to Archangel of Tithes, just a very powerful creature, and since we are a mono-white deck, the triple white cost is not a problem. We can easily cast it on turn 4, and then a 3/5 flyer that survives Languish, makes it difficult for the opponent to attack or block, is just nice. Then we get to Kytheon's Irregulars, one of the more powerful creatures in the deck, 4/3 Renown 1, but the Renown is not the important part, rather double white to tap a creature is very nice. Since again we are a mono-white deck, we will be able to use this ability quite often and multiple times every turn to tap down the largest creatures the opponent has, so we can keep attacking, which makes the Irregulars pretty good. Then we get to Suppression Bonds, another enchantment aura, so we can search it up with Heliod's Pilgrim. Enchants a non-land permanent, so not only creatures, and the enchanted permanent can't attack, block, and its activated abilities can't be activated, so this means you can even put this on a planeswalker and it won't be able to activate. You can also put this on an enchantment, like for example Evolutionary Leap, and it won't be able to be activated, so quite versatile. It is not super cheap at 4 mana, but again we pay for the versatility here to be able to search it up with the Pilgrim. Then we get to Knightly Valor, which is the more expensive and powerful enchantment aura in the deck, and when Knightly Valor enters the battlefield, we can put a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance on the field, and the enchanted creature will get +2/+2 and has Vigilance, so again combines nicely on a creature that's already enchanted by lots of enchantments, since now it also has Vigilance, so it can play offense and defense. And the added knight creature token is also nice, so if they do kill the creature that's enchanted by Knightly Valor, we still have a knight token that we can enchant with future cards. We do have to make sure, of course, that they don't kill the creature we're enchanting with a Knightly Valor in response, because then we don't get the token, of course. But that's true with all auras, you always have to be a little careful. And then our last card is Tragic Arrogance. This is our sweeper effect in this deck, which combines nicely with a card like Suppression Bonds, since we can decide to keep our Suppression Bonds as our enchantment and then let the opponent keep the creature that's enchanted by Suppression Bonds. So in reality they don't get anything relevant, while we can keep the best creature we have. And of course we can also decide to keep our creature and an enchantment that's enchanting our own creature. So lots of applications, and if we do happen to have some Thopter tokens from the Foundry, we can even keep a Thopter token plus an additional creature by choosing the Thopter token as the artifact, and then still keep a second creature. So Tragic Arrogance, quite versatile and powerful to get out of situations where the opponent has lots of creatures in play. And then of course our mana base, just 20 planes, so we can cast all those double and triple white cards. And since we are a monocolor deck, we can afford to play 2 Foundry of the Consuls as an additional token maker that can also help close out the game. Alright, that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, so this hand is an easy mulligan. And this hand, let's see, we are on the play, but only one land. We can play Kytheon. A second land lets us play Topan Freeblade into Orchid. This is a risky hand, but if we do find a second land, I think this hand is actually pretty good, so I think I'll keep it and hope for the best. Might be a little greedy again, since we are on the play, we don't get the additional draw step. But even if we miss one land drop, I think we can still recover, so we have 2 draw steps to draw land here. Alright. Let's attack and then play Topan Freeblade. And now we get to play 2-drop, then if our opponent has a third land, we can play the knight to get a third land ourselves if we miss. And we still have lots of other 2-drops we can play in the meantime. Opponent on red-green, so if we can get this Topan Freeblade on a pretty high toughness, thanks to Nimbus Wings or Divine Favor, it's gonna be difficult for the opponent to kill it. And a Perilous Mirror would usually be pretty good here, but since we have these enchantments, we can just give our Freeblade or Kytheon evasion. So let's see. Definitely gonna play one of the enchantments here. Question is which one, and the other question is which creature do we target. I think we just want to get this card Renowned, and also putting enchantments on Kytheon if he's gonna transform is not that great. So I think we'll just go for the Nimbus Wings, so our opponent can't block our Freeblade and can't kill the Kytheon when the Perilous Mirror dies. Get in for 3 damage, and now we'll have a 4/5 Vigilance Flyer which is very hard to kill for a red-green deck since their best burn spell is Exquisite Firecraft, which only deals 4 damage, so they do have to spend multiple burn spells trying to kill it, which is good for us, and we also get in for a bunch of damage. Alright, black mana makes it a little more difficult as our opponent plays Reclamation Sage, which is going to destroy our enchantment, which is unfortunate, but luckily we still have a second copy. So let's see, if we draw land here, we can have a pretty efficient turn of going knight into land into an enchantment, but we do not draw another land. So I think the play is just to play another enchantment here. So what happens if we put Divine Favor on, let's say, Kytheon? We'll have a 3/4. So our opponent will have to, let's say, double block here. So that wouldn't be bad, but I think it's still better to just play Nimbus Wings on the Freeblade again. Yeah. Don't see a reason not to. If we can avoid the Perilous Mirror blocking, why wouldn't we? So we get in for 4, and this can stay on defense. So it can block the Reclamation Sage, but we'll see if he does attack, because that might mean he has a burn spell to finish this off. Alright, we see an Evolving Wilds, which is likely gonna get a mountain here. Alright, Swamp. Swamp means our opponent either has one of those 5-mana double black removal spells. Alright, Evolutionary Leap was to be expected. So our opponents can sacrifice the mirror, kill Kytheon. But luckily we still have the Freeblade, and Leap reveals Gatecreeper Vine, also Bone Splinter, so our opponent probably has lots of these expendable creatures and then ways to sacrifice them. So double black might actually also mean our opponent has the priest that makes the 5/5 demon token, which is double black, which could actually block the Freeblade. Still didn't draw an additional land here, so I think it's just time to go Knight of the White Orchid, get a land into Vanguard. I don't think I want to put another enchantment here if our opponent might have one of those 5-mana removal spells in black to kill the Freeblade. So let's start by attacking. Put our opponent to 7 and play a bunch of creatures. And 5 toughness here means that even Languish won't be able to kill the Freeblade, so I don't feel bad about playing out the Knights and the Vanguard here, because Languish would only kill them and not the Topan Freeblade. So worst case scenario here for us is I think our opponent plays a removal spell on the Freeblade, but then we still have these creatures that can keep attacking, and we have a Suppression Bonds if we draw another land to take care of a big creature our opponent might have, or we could simply put the Suppression Bonds on Evolutionary Leap so our opponent can't keep activating it. Alright, there's the 5th land, and do we see a removal spell or a creature here? It's gonna be Perilous Mirror, alright. So wants to make some ground blockers. Leap is gonna sack the Perilous Mirror. And 2 damage goes to Knight of the White Orchid. That's still fine, so it looks like our Freeblade might survive. Also note that we played a bunch of creatures, which also plays around Flashback Marauder, which is one of the ways these decks can kill larger creatures. So Visionary also fine, so we can keep attacking with the Freeblade. Foundry is a decent draw, so let's see. 4 mana, we could play Suppression Bonds on the Leap, attack with the Freeblade, put our opponent to 3 life. Alright, looks like our opponent quit. Another play we could make is play the Pilgrim, fetch another Nimbus Wings, so if our opponent does kill the Freeblade next turn, we can simply enchant the Vanguard and attack for lethal, because we're not guaranteed to be able to do that next turn if we don't draw another land, since that means our opponent needs multiple cards to get out of this. So let's attack for 4, play the Pilgrim, and look for another Nimbus Wings. I don't think we want the Grasp, and I don't think we need any of those. Alright, let's pause the turn. So your opponent needs to kill this first, and there's a flashback, which now we can simply sacrifice the Heliod's Pilgrim. So we have 3 power with Nimbus Wings plus Vanguard to kill our opponent if he doesn't gain any life. So even if he does somehow get rid of the Freeblade, we can still win. This is a weird attack, so I don't think I block here. Opponent sacrifices it before damage, so the artificial intelligence is doing some weird things here. But looks like we're gonna be able to get there. Just to make sure, let's play the Lieutenant first, and then play Nimbus Wings on the Vanguard, and attack. Alright, that should be able to do it, so we can move on to the next game. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which looks acceptable. We've got a Knight into Heliod's Pilgrim into Archangel, and also a Foundry, which we can activate at some point. Opponent on Mountain. Another land. We don't really need more, but I guess we do have a Heliod's Pilgrim, which can search up a Knightly Valor. Red-green, Gatecreeper Vine. Alright. So I think we just run out the Knight on turn 2 here. We don't really need more lands. And we would like to have some pressure in play, as our opponent looks to be a slower deck. Interesting. So we could just play out the Vanguard, but then if our opponent plays an Elvish Visionary, we can't really attack in. Let's just play the Knight and pause the turn. So if our opponent's gonna have lots of ground blockers, our flying creatures are gonna be important. So we might want to grab a Nimbus Wings with the Pilgrim. And another Gatecreeper Vine. So lots of blockers for the Knight. There's actually a lot of cards we could get with the Pilgrim here. Could also just get a Knightly Valor, since going Archangel and then put a Knightly Valor on it seems pretty sweet. Since then we have it both on offense and defense, and its ability is going to be pretty relevant. If our opponent plays a giant creature like Outland Colossus at some point, we might want it to grab a Suppression Bonds instead. Also works against Evolutionary Leap, which our opponent could have. But I think we do have to play it now, since we don't really want to use it later, since we are going to play the Angel on 4, and if we want to play Knightly Valor on 5, we don't have time to play the Pilgrim again. But let's attack first. See if our opponent blocks. He does. So might not have an Evolutionary Leap in hand, otherwise he might want to keep them and play the Pilgrim, which is gonna get Knightly Valor, I believe. And pass the turn. 4th land. plays, interesting. Alright, let's go to combat and see what happens. Opponent just blocks the 1 damage. Alright, instead decides to jump and has a wild size. Alright, did not expect that. So actually eats our Knight of the White Orchid and draws a card, which is fine. This means that our Tragic Arrogance might actually be better if we play it in the future, since now we can give our opponent a Gatecreeper Vine. And yeah, let's just play the Archangel here and pass the turn. Are we gonna see the big scary Outland Colossus here? Instead it's a Zendikars Royal, which is gonna generate 2/2 tokens whenever a land enters the opponent's control. Alright, so I think we might actually just wanna slam down this Knightly Valor, since we don't really have any better plays at the moment. Still not gonna play out the Foundry, since our opponent could destroy it with the Acid Moss. Play Knightly Valor. And attack for 5. No need to attack with the Pilgrim, since our opponent's just gonna block. This saves us a little bit of time. And yeah, 5/7, not very easy to deal with from a green-red deck. There's a land, he gets a 2/2 elemental. Woodland Bellower, alright, this could get a Reclamation Sage destroying the Knightly Valor. Let's see if that's the case. Yep, there it is. Destroys the enchantment, which is unfortunate. And let's see. So we could play Irregulars and use its ability on the opponent's turn to tap down the Bellower. We could also just use Tragic Arrogance here and leave ourselves the Archangel and leave our opponent the Gatecreeper Vine. So lots of options again. I actually don't hate running out the Irregulars and waiting one more turn with the Arrogance, since our opponent might play some more large creatures that we could get with the Arrogance. So let's attack with the Angel. Put our opponent to 11. And then play the Irregulars and plan to tap down the Bellower before it can attack. Pilgrimage, our opponent will search up a bunch of forests, which is fine. Although this is gonna trigger the Zendikars Royal, of course. Another trigger, another elemental token, which is fine given that we have the Tragic Arrogance and Primal Hunt Beast, also not a problem. And now we wanna tap down the Bellower so it doesn't do any damage. Alright, another land. So I think it's time to pull the trigger on this Arrogance. Now the question is, do we want to leave ourselves with the Irregulars or the Archangel? I think we could just put the Nimbus Wings on the Irregulars and then keep the Irregulars. That sounds fine. And leave our opponent with the Vine, which means we don't actually want to attack with the Knight here, otherwise our opponent could just jump and then we would have to leave our opponent with an actual creature. So I think here we just play the Nimbus Wings on the Irregulars. Attack with both our flyers. And put our opponent to 3. Opponent has decided he's had enough, apparently. And we're gonna cast Tragic Arrogance. And we will keep our Nimbus Wings. Our opponent gets to keep his Zendikar Royal, unfortunately. We get to keep the Irregulars. Our opponent gets to keep the Gate Reaper Vine. And this board looks a lot more manageable. And we even have a 6/6, which is pretty difficult to kill again. And if the opponent doesn't find an answer, he's gonna be dead next turn. No play, interesting. Let's attack and see what happens. Could be a fog. Alright, I wanna thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this gameplay. And as always, have a nice day.